Hello everybody and welcome back to Typical City. Brighton are heading to the Etihad to take on the treble winners this Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock kickoff UK time. Come and join me for the watch along. I will be doing a live watch along for this game. Come and join me if you're new, and if you are new to the channel, like and subscribe. It would really be appreciated. The Premier League's back. The Premier League is back and I cannot wait. Arguably the international break came at quite a good time for City. I know you lost to Arsenal and you want to get straight back onto the pitch and play football again and get back to winning ways, but there were some elements that happened in the international break that could arguably be seen as helping City, like John Stones, for example, getting match fitness. I did a key, John Stones is the key to Manchester City's future going forward to this season. Go and watch that video. I recently dropped that yesterday, so go and have a look at that if you're interested. As well as Erling Haaland, he got himself 2 goals, albeit only against Cyprus as well, but one of them was an absolute thunderbolt that was a bit of a familiar sight to City fans. That sort of finishing is what we want to see in a Manchester City shirt, so hopefully we will see that going forward, starting this weekend against Brighton. But two teams that are very possession-based football sides. De Zerbi, arguably, City fans wouldn't mind looking at him as a potential replacement to Pep Guardiola. God forbid that day comes anytime soon. But if that day does come soon, then De Zerbi certainly would be considered on the shortlist, because I think he's a fantastic manager and he plays very similar football. A little bit, he's very much Pep-based. I think 80% of his game is Pep-based, but he's got that bit of sprinkle of Klopp about him as well in terms of his personality on the touchline. He's a little bit of a hothead, as well as he does that rock and roll football as well, where he smashes his way through teams at times in the final third. A little less tiki-taka, that old school terminology that was linked to Pep Guardiola, where he sometimes has a little bit more of brute force about his football, which I quite like and I admire. And I think the only difference is the players that he's got at his disposal compared to Liverpool and Manchester City are nothing compared to those two teams. So really he's doing wonders with that Brighton team right now and getting them into European football as well. But they're out of form. Winless in 4, Brighton. City are out of form as well. 3 domestic losses in a row is the picture that likes to be painted by our rivals. Really, we lost 1 in a row, if you take into all competitions into consideration, which is what we should be doing, because one of those was a Champions League game. We won it. You know, winning Champions League games shouldn't be ignored. You know, we beat RB Leipzig and comfortably. Rodri was in the team and we comfortably dispatched RB Leipzig with no problem. A very, run-of-the-mill performance really from Manchester City that we're used to seeing. And I think we're going to see that again, hopefully going forward, with Rodri being the nucleus to Manchester City's side going forward. But the two teams are out of form. I mean, they lost 6-1 to Aston Villa. Unai Emery did an absolute number on De Zerbi in that game, in tactics that were employed that we'll never see City do, because we're not, we're a better team than Brighton. Really, we should be employing our own tactics and rather worrying about what they could do to us, which we need to take into consideration. We need to remember that we're Manchester City, and what we can do to them in terms of attacking damage is far more dangerous than what they can do to us. They're very dangerous, don't get me wrong, but we've got plenty of damage output in our side of things as well. So we do need to factor that in, but we're going against Brighton. So Premier League top goal scorers right now, comfortably top goal scorers in the Premier League right now. So they've got goals. So it's going to be a really interesting game. It's going to be one of those games that's going to be either a high scoring game or the team two are going to cancel each other out. I think that could possibly bode. That's the situation that I think might happen, may not. It's just a flip of the coin type of scenario, isn't it? Is Erling Haaland going to take his chances as well? So, I mean, Brighton haven't won in 13 attempts away at City as well. So if you're into your history and you believe in that superstition side of things, so that's certainly on City's side. But a bit of housekeeping first. The only injury news for Manchester City fans to worry about is Kevin De Bruyne. That was a given. He's not going to be back till probably Christmas time. Everyone else is back, namely John Stones, and I can't wait to see him playing again. Personally, I'll get into my starting 11 in a minute, but personally I think he needs to go straight into this starting 11. I think we need to see him now, because I think he's the nucleus to our success. Last season, in those final 20 games of the season, we kept 8 clean sheets in the last 20 games of the season, and John Stones was a huge figurehead to that as well. Rodri going alongside John Stones is what a midfield that is. What a midfield. So solid. In terms of Brighton, they've got 2 doubts that likely they could play as well. Lamptey And Milner, boo, James Milner, not a big City fan favourite, is he anymore after his words when he left to join Liverpool? Estupiñán's injured, Jakub Moder's injured, and Enciso is injured as well. Goal of the season. What a goal that was against us last season. Goal of the season it was. And something that's bugged me for quite some time is that is not the first goal of the season that we've been on the receiving end of. Okay? Mo Salah in 21-22, that jinking run in Anfield where he went in and poked it with his right foot into the bottom right-hand, far right-hand corner. What a goal that was. Wayne Rooney's overhead kick goal against City in the Manchester derby at Old Trafford. I'm sure you remember that. It's all Sky Sports want to talk about for the last decade in terms of their highlight reels. But who got the runner-up that season? The runner-up was Peter Crouch at Stoke with that little chested volley where he sets himself up and volleys it from about 40 yards and beats Joe Hart in the far corner. These moments as well. Andros Townsend as well. Screamer against Crystal Palace. Goal of the season in 1920 season. The thing I want to point out is in all those seasons, we won the league. We won the league in all those seasons. You know, and that's what does that. Is that a sign of City are just unlucky and the typical City is still there, still ingrained in City's life and our DNA? Is we're always on the receiving end of worldies, or is that what it takes to beat City nowadays? You have to score a worldie like that if you have any chance of beating us, because we'd have beaten Brighton if it wasn't for that Enciso goal, that absolute worldie, but that's sod's law. Anyway, now then, the Manchester City predicted starting 11. This is more hopeful. Again, it usually is. Pep normally throws a spanner in the works for people like myself who are trying to predict his starting 11, but this is what I'm hoping to see against Brighton. Ederson straight in there. Now, it starts to get interesting is what we're going to do. Are we going to play the system where Kyle Walker moves forward, or are we going to see John Stones stepping up to the plate and starting in this Manchester City starting 11? Personally, I think we could see both playing. Hopefully we do. So I've gone with Kyle Walker at right back, John Stones as the other centre back, Ruben Diaz alongside him, and at left back, Gvardiol. Now, that could be Nathan Ake. Gvardiol offers a little bit more in terms of creativity going forward. Will he be able to get involved in the play as much? Probably not, but he will be able to break the lines better than Nathan Ake, and those lines need breaking against Brighton. In front of them, the big man's back, so we can relax now. Let's all chill out. Rodri's back. Everyone, chill. We're going to win the league. The big man, Rodri, is back, sitting in front of them. Now, in front of Rodri is where it gets interesting, because we've seen Phil Foden playing as a right winger this season that's not staying as a right winger. He's inverting, allowing Kyle Walker to come up and down the right wing. That's what we've been seeing so far this season. I am going to play him in the middle, though. But Phil Foden's going to start in the middle and stay in the middle. So I'm going to stick Phil Foden out there, and then Alvarez will be alongside him, as I'm predicting. There's only one man ahead of them, really, isn't he? So let's stick him straight in. Erling Haaland. Now, I've gone for Jeremy Doku on the left. On the right, I've gone for Bernardo Silva. Now, you'll notice why I've put Alvarez here and Foden there is because I want to see a balance across both sides of the pitch, because if you put Phil Foden on that side, Alvarez on that side, this side with Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, Rodri would likely get involved, or Haaland could get involved. In these triangles over here, you've got so much control, an immense amount of control. Over this side of the pitch, Jeremy Doku and Julian Alvarez, not so much. The control isn't as good. The possession-based football isn't what we're used to seeing, and it's more explosive. And Alvarez being over there doesn't really complement Doku, because Alvarez isn't really known for feeding through the channels, really. So, personally, I'd like to see Phil Foden that side and Alvarez this side, and that way they can complement each other. You've got the control of Bernardo Silva and the explosive unpredictability of Julian Alvarez alongside Bernardo Silva. I think Alvarez complements Bernardo Silva, and I think Phil Foden, his control will complement the explosiveness of Jeremy Doku, and feeding these balls down the channel will be much more likely from Phil Foden rather than Alvarez, because you don't tend to see Alvarez feeding the balls through the channels quite as well, whereas Bernardo Silva doesn't really want to go in those channels. He tends to want to rotate in and become more of the inside, or we'll see Alvarez coming down the wing, on the inside channel rather, Bernardo Silva staying on the wing and feeding it down to the byline for Alvarez. I think that suits City more. Now, in terms of Brighton, I've gone for Jason Steele in goal. Lewis Dunk, who's had a bit of a mixed performance, got himself a goal recently, but also a little bit ropey against Marseille in the Europa League. A little bit, I don't know, his head seemed to go in that game. I wasn't impressed by his temperament in that game. Van Heck alongside him, and I've gone for Veltman alongside him. Lamptey is a doubt. He could play in that position, Lamptey, who would offer a better attacking threat in truth. But Solly March has been playing left back recently, which is great in an attacking sense, but defensively, I'm hoping to see Solly March there because he could get exposed down that side, whether it be Bernardo Silva or Jeremy Doku, whichever side of the pitch they play on. Now, in the middle of the park, we've seen Pascal Gross playing a lot, but I've gone for Dahoud because I think he offers a little bit more solidity and you need that against Manchester City. Pascal Gross, who's played a lot of minutes this season for Brighton, I think he will play alongside and he's offering goals. He tore United apart at Old Trafford, so I think he will likely play alongside him. In front of them, I've gone for Mitoma on the left and let me find him, Adingra on the right, who got himself a goal against Liverpool in the last Premier League weekend. João Pedro has been fantastic. Now, he can actually play as an out-and-out number 9, but I think he's doing well as a busybody in a number 10 role, sat behind Evan Ferguson, who I think will be their main threat going forward. A little bit more of an old-school number 9 that City fans are familiar with, and the old-school number 9 is coming back in fashion, really, isn't it? It's coming back in fashion. So I think this is the team that we'll likely go up against Brighton. Now, in terms of seeing the two teams playing together on the pitch at the same time, I think this is how the two teams are going to line up effectively together. But what you want to see now is John Stones pushing forward. That's what I mentioned in my John Stones video yesterday. Go and watch it if you haven't already. John Stones pushing forward is what City fans are familiar with, what we saw last season, pushing out as that half-back role. Not quite a centre-back, not quite a defensive midfielder. In and out of the ball, depending on the situation. Circumstantial positioning is what John Stones has gotten used to. As a defensive midfielder with the ball, he's a centre-back without the ball. Kyle Walker tucking inside and making it part of a back 3, with Gvardiol making that back 3 there. There's your back 5 that City fans are familiar with. The structure, the defensive structure of playing out from the back tends to be like this, with a back 5 like this. Now, Adingra and Mitoma and João Pedro, immediately you can see they're outnumbered. Who's going to press? Because the numerical advantage is there already. You can see the numerical advantage is 5 to 4 to Brighton's 4. If Pascal Gross pushes, then that's when we start to break the lines. And who's better at breaking the lines between John Stones and Rodri? Kovacic could play in there, but is Kovacic going to be able to tuck back into that position? No, he's not. And that's the issue that we've been struggling with this season. And that's why I think John Stones is key. And that's why I think John Stones is actually an answer to creativity. People questioning the creativity. Is Dahoud and Pascal Gross going to be strong enough to just man-mark Phil Foden and Julian Alvarez out of the game? Because if these two get the ball enough, they're in trouble. If these two get enough space, Brighton are going to lose the game because they're going to be able to feed the channels into Erling Haaland. Now, what you want to see from a Brighton perspective is the backtracking for Mitoma. Is Mitoma going to do the backtracking for them? Is he going to be willing enough to backtrack in those positions there, get back to Bernardo Silva and close down and kill these triangles that City want to play? If he does, that gives Kyle Walker the freedom to push forward as well. So if Adingra does the same, we end up pinning them back. But will they be doing enough to prevent Kyle Walker as well? Because that's where Mitoma wants to be. He wants to get into this pocket here and see João Pedro bursting into these channels here. And that's when John Stones comes in, because naturally John Stones wants to tuck back into the centre-back role. He doesn't want to come out wide. He wants to tuck into this defensive role, into a centre-back role, which is why John Stones is perfect for killing the centre, as well as counter-attacks as well, because the danger is in the middle of the park. Going out wide, you're only available for crossing the ball. Blocking the central parts of the pitch is what prevents counter-attacks, and why we weren't susceptible to counter-attacks last season was because John Stones was able to tuck back into these positions. João Pedro is going to be a threat. He's going to be closing down Rodri and pick the pocket of John Stones and Rodri. Will he be able to do it? I'm not too sure, but we want to get the ball and break the lines between Phil Foden and Julian Alvarez. Now, Rodri to Foden or John Stones to Alvarez, that's how we win this game effectively. And once we're in these positions, Alvarez and Phil Foden need to have good games. If Pascal Gross isn't going to do the job that Brighton want him to do in terms of closing down Julian Alvarez and Dahoud closing down Phil Foden, then we're in business. Because if these two can drift into behind these two, if Pascal Gross pushes forward, then the immense amount of space that will be there available, and Dahoud tucking in potentially to protect Pascal Gross, who's probably got more of a box-to-box role ball if they want to win this game. Are they going to come for the win, or are they going to come for the draw? Because that's where the game will be won and lost, in the middle of the park between Phil Foden and Julian Alvarez. That's my prediction, Blues. Get your predictions in the comments below. I really want to hear them. What are your predictions for the result? What are your predictions for the starting 11 for Brighton and Manchester City? Personally, I think this could be a 0-0 type of game, a 1-1 type of game, a real close affair, or it could be a high-scoring game like a 4-2 type of game. I'm going to go on the air of excitement, and I'm hoping for a 4-2. I am going to predict 4-2. That's my prediction. What are yours? Get in the comments below. I really want to hear them. Like and subscribe. Typical City is the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City.